Yeah, right. And I'm going to move my camera a bit to another camera. Okay, so part three, because when we come to part three is a part that has its own volume. That means it is one special part of the IMDG code book that gets its own volume, because the other parts like 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, all of them have to squeeze themselves into volume one, into one volume. But part two, on the other hand, part three, on the other hand, sits in its own volume, because this part three has got a lot inside it. About 80% of part three in volume two is the DGL, the dangerous goods list. Now you saw page 26 of your DGL. You open page 26 of your DGL. Okay. Now when you open page 26, this is actually the first page in volume 2 part 3. And what is the first number you see there? 0004, correct? So that is the first UN number. That's the starting number, 0004. And when you go to page 196, you see the number 3548 in the UN number. That's the last UN number. So give and take, we're looking at it about 3,500 UN numbers. So that's why makes up to about 80% of the book. But when you open part 3, volume 2, it will first start with, like, every chapter will have this general scope and general provisions, where they will explain certain things. They will explain what are the scope and provision of that part of the IMDG code. That means what it's going to cover. And then it launches into proper shipping names. And when you look at the code book and you look at the proper shipping name information, you'll probably be reading it like a multiple amount of times to try and understand what it's trying to say to you. And then it moves into mixtures and solutions. So I'm not going to go into the intensity of mixtures and solutions in general awareness level. I leave that for function specific level. That also, it's a function specific to lab techs, because when there are mixtures of substances and these 2 or 3 substances that you mixed to form into a new product, and assuming that each of these different substances that you mix to make into this new product has got various packing groups. Now, when you mix it, what then takes precedence? That means which is the most hazardous among, which is the most hazardous class when you've mixed it all up, and which is the most hazardous packing group. So there is something called a precedence to hazard table that you will see in part 3.31 of the code book. And that, in fact, you won't see it in 3.31. They will tell you to go to part 2, classification, because they explain that in the classification part of the code book, where they show you a table called the precedence of hazard table to identify what I just mentioned to you. And I'm not going to go into that. Also, it explains about proper shipping names. As I mentioned, it will be a bit difficult for you to understand there. So I have it within our slideshow, and I'll attempt to explain it the best as I can, and I hope you understand the different types of PSNs that we see listed in the index of volume 2 part 3 of the IMDG code. But also in volume 2 part 3, you will have this under 3.1, there is this subchapter 3.1.4. 3.1.4 are segregation groups. So that's what I was trying to show you. Now I'm going to show you that again, because I have to keep sharing the screens separately to show you that. So there you go. So this, you can download this. It's in the attachment in your e-learning portal. And when you look at this, you see these are the segs. So this is 3.1.4 in volume 2, part 3 of the code book. And as I mentioned to you, all the UN numbers from 0004 to 3548, We don't know, we're not chemists. We cannot just look at this and say whether this thing is an acid or whether it's an alkaline or a perchlorate or an ammonia or whatever. So what the committee of experts on the transport of dangerous goods, our Orange Book guys, what they did was they broke all these chemicals into what they call 18 groups of chemicals. So the 18 groups, like group 1 are for chemicals that fall under acids category. So when you look at the screen now, the screen show, you will see all these UN numbers starting with 1052 all the way down to, see, it's such a long list, all the way down to 3498. So all these entries, all these UN numbers are acids. And then second group, SGG2, segregation group 2, is for ammonium compounds. So that means starting with 0004, which is the first UN entry, right, in your page 26, all the way down to 3424. These are the list of UN numbers that are known as ammonium compounds, and so on, so forth. So the third group is bromates, the fourth is chlorates, the fifth is chlorides, the sixth is cyanides, the seven is heavy metals and their salt, not ACDC, yeah. And the eighth is hypochlorites. The ninth are lead and its compounds. 10 is liquid halogenated hydrocarbons. 11 is mercury and mercury compounds. And 12 is nitrites. 13 perchlorates, 14 permanganates, 15 powdered metals, 16 peroxides, 17 azides, 18 alkalines. So there are 18 groups here. Why do we need this? When we come to part 7, I will draw your attention to that as to why do you need to know these groups of substances. Yeah, because when we do segregation, you will need to know them. So we now go back to our part 3. Yeah. So the learning objectives in here is the major objective is the columns of the DGL. You need to familiarize yourself with the columns of the DGL. That means knowing what each column represents and knowing where to refer to in the code book when you see an information in a specific column of the DGL, because every column of the DGL, when you look at your page 26 or whatever the pages of the DGL, the column numbers are in brackets. And then from the column numbers that are in brackets, under them, you will see numbers. Like for instance, if you look at column number 2, you will see 3.1.2. So when you see 3.1.2, what that is telling you is where in the code book will you get information pertaining to PSN. So this is part 3.1.2, volume 2 of the code book, open 3.1.2, which I just told you about. In here, where they give you information about PSN. So every column of the DGL points you to a subsection of the IMDG code that will give you information pertaining to what that column represents. But even then, it's not as simple as that. There are certain things you need to understand how to read these things, okay? So that is the objective of this lesson, lesson 3 or part 3. List the columns and briefly understand their functions, and look at specifically special provisions, because people tend to oversee that. They don't really look at the importance of special provisions. So in this part, I will emphasize on the importance of special provisions and tell you why you need to look at them and how do you look at them and how these can actually qualify as sometimes as exemptions. That means based on certain conditions in the special provision, if your product meets these conditions, it may not even be declared as a dangerous goods. It could be outside of the realm of dangerous goods. So, or a special provision might ask you to do some additional information. And if you don't follow, you can be penalized on it. So that's why it's important. And I'm going to draw you to it. And I've asked you to download the special provision so we can look at them and work on them in that way. Another thing that is in part 3 are these 2 exceptions, because you must understand a lot of things are dangerous goods. Even the stuff that we apply on ourselves and the stuff that we eat. If you dye your hair dye is dangerous. If you use correction fluids, it's dangerous. If you use any product in an aerosol can, it's a dangerous article too. It's dangerous. So there's a lot of household stuff and consumer products that are dangerous as well. And when they are shipped out to consumers, because sometimes they are produced across another border, different country. So that means it becomes an international transport. When it becomes an international transport, you would definitely, if it is a country that is bordered together on land, then you have road and rail to use. But if it does not have a road and it's locked, that means it's a water surrounding it, and it has to go to another country, then you're going to use air or sea to move it. So whenever you have to cross borders, all right, between these countries, there's, of course, there's that international laws that get into place, like these IMDG codes and the IATA DGRs and the ADRs and the what have yous, right? And these codes and guidelines have got, of course, the main objective is to ensure that these goods are safely handled in transit because they're dangerous. But the second objective is also, it communicates what I told you, risk. Because when you communicate risk is when the insurer is able to calculate the premium. That means, what is your risk for me to calculate how much coverage you need and what is your exposure? So then I can calculate how much premium you need to pay. Let's take a simple example, okay? Let's take health insurance. So I'm 48 years old and I smoke, okay? Now, let's take Divya, and I think Divya is probably in her 20s, probably in her mid-20s or whatever, and I doubt she smokes. She doesn't even look like a smoker to me, and maybe she doesn't even drink, right? So now Divya and me, both of us are going for health insurance. Now, between the two of us, who's going to end up paying more premium? Obviously me. Why? I'm older, I'm 48, and she's probably in her 20s. Number two, my lifestyle. I smoke, she doesn't smoke. Even though if I exercise, I smoke. So I'm old and I smoke, and if I have any other illness, that makes me a higher risk, which means that I will be definitely going to hospital constantly to either get medical care, which means that every time I go to hospital, I have to pay money. What will I do? I'll use my medical insurance, right? Which means I will claim from my insurance. So that's how insurers look at you. If you are very risky, you will take the money from the insurance, you will claim from it. And when you are risky, your premium levels are very high, right or not? So when we talk about risk in that essence, we understand risk equals to money. The riskier something is, the more costlier it's going to be for us to handle it. Why? Because the insurer is going to charge us a higher premium. Why will the insurer charge us a higher premium? Goes back to that basic, because you're very risky. I have to collect more money from you. Remember, insurance is not charity, it's a business. And it's only going to cover you based on how risky you are. If you're extremely risky, they don't even cover insurance. Mind you, they'll say, fly kites, forget it. I'm not going to help cover your risks, right? So coming back to the risk issue, when something is risky, the surcharge to move it is higher. So you have also dangerous goods, as I mentioned to you, that are household items, hair dye, liquid paper, mosquito spray, hairspray, some kind of additives, perfumes, essential oils. These are all dangerous substances, mind you. But when they come to the consumer, we never buy drums of it. You cannot imagine buying a drum of hair dye and keeping it in your house. Number one, it is unsafe. It's against the safety rules. You're putting a flammable liquid in your house and you're not fit to hold dangerous goods. Number two, what you're going to do? Dye your whole taman punya hair. Because with one drum, I think you can dye the entire Klang Town punya residents' hair. All right? So it doesn't make sense. A consumer will never buy a drum. What a consumer will do is a consumer will purchase a pack. And when you go and buy hair dye, you see the pack is very small. It is like it's in a box, okay? And in the box, there is a bottle and another bottle. And when you mix these two ingredients together is where the activation takes place. So these are both active ingredients. And only, where's this camera? And only when you mix this, does the work of the hair dyeing take place. So, but then we take this could be 30 ml. This thing could be 15 ml, right? It's packed into a carton box. And This carton box, say we are shipping it out, we're using a container and this is a hair dye. We won't put one by one carton box in there, right? This small box that has the bottle is its intermediary package. It will be packed into a carton box where you will have multiples of these intermediary packages. And then this carton box pull-out will sit on a pallet and it will be palletized. So there's multiple layers and layers and layers of packaging if you look at it, right? And remember when I explained to you class 1 dangerous goods, I was trying to give you the difference between a 1.1 and a 1.4. I said the basic substance is the same. It's a gunpowder, some kind of gunpowder kind of a substance. But what makes one more dangerous than the other is the type of packaging and the quantity that it contains. In 1.1, single packaging, larger quantity. In 1.4, multiple combination packaging and smaller quantity. So whenever a consumer purchases, we never purchase commercial packaging. When I talk about commercial packaging, that means when the customer is another business, it's not a consumer. Usually they will use packagings that are drums for a liquid cargo. Okay, we'll concentrate on liquid hair dye. It's a drum, it's in an IBC, or it will be in a portable tank. All right, so this is how your normal commercial cargo. But the consumer cargo sizes, packaging sizes will be enough for the consumer only, which is a much smaller packaging quantity and many layers of packaging within it. So generally, if I were to take this UN number, UN 1993, all right, and this 1993 is a class 3, and a class 3 in a drum, and a class 3 in one of this 30 ml 15, quite obvious kind. Which is more dangerous? This is more dangerous. This is more risky. This is less risky. So because of these kind of situations that are there, we ship out goods to East Malaysia. Different countries do the bottling. Different countries do the manufacturing production quantities instead of the consumer production quantities, you know, the industrial quantities. Yeah, let's call this industrial packages. But DG also moves in this, which we call consumer packaging. So for consumer packaging, the risk should not be treated the same as with industrial packaging. The quantities are less, the packaging levels are higher. So there are exceptions that the code introduces. And these two exceptions, one of them very famous, is known as limited quantity, which we will learn in here. And the other one is accepted quantities, which generally is used by air freight, but has been moved into sea freight because of multimodalization. So I showed you this, which is the segregation groups that are in 3.1.4. And now we go straight to the DGL, okay? So the DGL has got 18 columns, and these 18 columns are generally giving you information about a UN number, the name that belongs to that UN number, like your IC number belongs to you, okay? And the characteristics of the product in the following columns of the DGL. And we'll go through them one by one. So the UN number first, let's take the UN number. The UN number that you see in the first column and the 18th column of the DGL is always a 4-digit number. And preceding this 4-digit number is the alphabet UN. Generally, to tell you, UN means what? United Nations. So UN number, who do you think is the party that came up with this whole UN number? It is the UN Committee of Experts in the Transport of Dangerous Goods. So these are the people who came up with this UN numbering system. And these UN numbering systems are what defines, or every UN number will have a PSN to it, just like your IC number. Your IC number, the first 6 digits, your year of birth and month and day of birth. The second 2 digits is where you were born, which state you were born. The last 4 digits are yours only. if tomorrow you cease to exist, that number also ceases to exist with you. That means nobody can tomorrow born and use the 4-digit number of yours. All right? The UN number is the same story. When a product becomes obsolete, that means it no longer is transported. That product is then removed from the UN numbering system and it's not reused. That's why when you look at page 26, the first page of the DGL, first UN number starts with number 4, 0004. 0001, 2, and 3 have been removed. Okay, so UN number is the first, and then the second column is going to give you, these are the new UN numbers. The second column is going to give you the proper shipping name of the substance. Now, the proper shipping name, as I mentioned to you, is the technical name of the substance. So, take for instance, if I were to ask you, can you put your mics on, all of you, for a little while, because I asked you to put it on. Okay, somebody say hi, so I know your mic is on.
Hi.
All right, cool. So your mics are on. Okay, I'm going to ask you all a question. One of you answer this, anyone, whoever answers first. What is the technical name for liquid paper? What is the technical name for liquid paper? What is the technical name for liquid paper? Who wants to answer me that? Okay, let me ask you in another manner. What is the technical name for Maggi noodles? Because Maggi is a commercial name, is it not? It belongs to a company. You can have Maggi, you can have Indomie, you can have 101 me's now. But what is the technical name for this thing?
Instant noodle.
Instant noodle. So now you understand what technical name means, right? The technical name is the usage name of the substance. So when I ask you, what is the technical name for liquid paper? Yes, who said that? Say it louder.
Correction tape.
Correction tape or correction fluid, depending what it is, right?
Fluid. Okay.
Correction fluid. Right. So proper shipping names are technical names of substances. Okay. And what you see in the DGL, like if you look at the DGL, let's now take the pages of the DGL because now time coming for looking at the DGLs. Okay. Now let me ask you to look at page 61. Can you open page 61? All right, you have the page open?
Yeah.
All right, so when you look at page 61 and you look at the column number 1, which is your UN number, the second column is the PSN. You look at the UN number 1358, there's like a triangle next to that UN number.
Yeah.
Okay, now when you look at this PSN, you will see Panjang Gila Babi, here or not? Zirconium powder wetted. But what is the PSN here is what you see in huruf besar, capital letters. All right. So the PSN for UN 1358 is zirconium powder, comma, wetted. Where else the information with not less than 25% water, all that, that is not a PSN. That is just explanatory information on the PSN. Okay, so PSNs are only what you see in capital letters, no small letters, only. And if the PSN has a comma, then we follow the comma. Sometimes the PSNs will be and or, you know, it could be this or it could be that. So what do we do is we have to refer, like you look at page 51, DGL page 51, you will see a UN number 1170. Do you see that? So 1170, they tell you it's ethanol, ethyl alcohol, or ethanol solution. So either or. So when you have to identify what is the PSN, when you have a selection of 2, you look at the safety data sheet in section 14 of the safety data sheet that the shipper provides you. The shipper will tell you whether it is ethanol or whether it is ethanol solution. So you select one of them. Okay. So these PSNs also, now coming back to PSNs, yeah. So these PSNs, when the committee of experts, when they selected the PSNs, because you imagine there are so many things that are being transported. And the more our dependence on chemical substitutes, more and more stuff is coming out there. So you can't possibly have every product's name in that book. It's quite impossible to do that. And we will go crazy searching for them as well. So what they did was they broke these PSNs into, actually, they put here 4 categories, okay? But the way I look at it is 3 categories. Okay, one is, they call it single or specific entry. The other one, they call it generic entry. So every time they will use this word entry. Entry means it's a substance. Generic entry, specific entry, or what has the UN been entered through. Nalmuli, where did you go, Nalmuli? Where did you go? Make sure you watch the recording of this class, please.
Okay.
And no taking off, unless of course you have to go toilet, then no choice. Okay, so in entries, when it is a specific entry are those substances that have been mentioned by their name, right? For instance, 1170 in page 51. That is a specific entry because the product is ethanol and it is specifically or singly been named what it is. But you also have entries that are known as generic entries. That means they don't have their name mentioned specifically. How they have been mentioned is in a group of substances that have the same function as them. You know, they have given it like under groupings. So, for instance, the example that is given on your screen share is UN 1133 adhesives or UN 1266 for perfumery. Now, let's take perfumery because not many of you are familiar with adhesives. Now, when you look at perfumery, perfumery can be a fragrance of any kind, right? It can be a one that you use, a perfume that you would use for fashion, you know, like ladies use perfume or men use perfume fragrances. Or it could be a fragrance that is used for food, or it could be a fragrance that is used for a cleaning product. So there are multiple things that the fragrance could be used in. And imagine if they had to come up with PSNs for each and every one of those. But what is the main function of it? The main function of the substance is that its role is it's supposed to be a perfume. So those are the kind of entries that will be grouped under these generic PSNs, generic names, because they go based on their functions. Okay? Now, the problem appears when, my dear friends, appear when the entry, the product, meaning the substance, is a mixture of so many things. They've mixed it to a point where when they go to the index, they cannot find a specific or a generic name. That means in the specific pun tidak ada nama. The name is not there. Because they would have mixed the substance, they'll have another name for it. Sometimes they mix the substance. It's an alphabet soup, you know, if you look at their chemical names. You know, of course, they will come up with trade names for it, but they can't come up with technical names for it because probably it's a new substance that has come up and there is no technical name per se for it. So what happens is they fall under what this is known as a bunch of entries that fall under this, not otherwise specified, NOS, not otherwise specified. So what does that mean? Let's take that word in English, in sense of English language. What does not otherwise specified mean? It means that I have something that when I tested it in the lab, it demonstrated hazards. It either exploded or it's a flammable liquid or a flammable solid based on what we discussed in classes. But when I go to the index column, I cannot find its name. So it is not specified. it has not been specified as a single entry or specific entry, or it has not been specified in its generic name. All right. So when it's not been specified means, okay, now what do I do? So what happens is it goes under these NOS entries. When it goes under the NOS entries, it breaks into two branches of NOS for the lab tech to figure out what is the best name that suits to this new product. It breaks into a specific NOS or it breaks into a generic NOS. When I say either or, if it is a specific NOS, they will take that product and they will see, is this very close to one of the specific products or specific list of PSNs? Is it specific to alcohols? Is it specific to perfumes? Is it specific to adhesive? So they'll take based on the generic groups of it. Is it specific to any of these generic groups that we spoke about here? If they can't find it in anywhere there, then their last resort is to fall under generic NOS. Because what a generic NOS does, it'll take the main hazard. If the substance main hazard is it's a flammable liquid, then it will take UN 1993 flammable liquid, and then it will have a comma NOS. That is what it'll say. So what it's communicating to everybody in the transport chain is that my new product is actually nama tak susah nak cari. Tak ada nama, tidak ada nama dengan khusus. No, not otherwise specified. So nama yang dipilih adalah nama generik. Apakah nama generik? Dia under nama generik NOS yang berpadu kepada hazard classes. So because this product, the new product is actually a flammable liquid. I see the flashpoint is a problem, but there is no name for it. So it falls under UN 1993, flammable liquids, comma, not otherwise specified. Now I want you to take a look at the DGLs, okay? And let's look for an entry that has an NOS in it. Because you want to know whether this is communicating the information that it's supposed to. Remember, we're supposed to communicate everything whenever we ship out dangerous goods. When you get an entry that ends with an NOS, your communication is halted a bit. So, but you're not really telling anyone what exactly is the product, yes or not. You're just saying the product is like this, but it's not specified. So then it becomes the responsibility to communicate what the actual product really is. And when we look, like let's take, I'm going to take UN number
1707.
Okay, let's take 1707 since you picked it out. Yeah, let's look at 1707. So 1707 is thallium compound, not otherwise specified. So this is, if you notice, this is a specific NOS. They have grouped it under a certain substance called, they have called thallium compounds, right? But they say it is not otherwise specified. So now the code, Nanmuli, can you put your speaker, your mic off, Nanmuli, because it's disturbing the sound here. Okay, let her just turn the speaker off, her mic off. Right, now you will notice whenever there is an NOS entry in the DGL, you look at column number 6, which is special provision. You will always find special provision 274. So now you look at all the DGLs that I provided you, and you look at all of them that have entries that end with NOS, and take a look at column 6 of the DGL and tell me, am I right? Does it say 274 or does it not say 274? And if you see it say, because I'm pretty sure you're going to see 274, what I want you to do now is go to the special provisions that I asked you to download and look for the number 274 in the special provisions. And then we will look at what that 274 is trying to tell us. So if you look at 274, 274 will appear on page page number 204 of the special provisions. You have that? So if you have that and you look at 274, this is how, and you look at 274, it says, for the purpose of documentation and package marking, the PSN, the proper shipping name, shall be supplemented with the technical name. Every time you have an entry that ends with NOS, you will have a 274. A 274 is communicating that your entry name is tak cukup, not sufficient. That you need to supplement the PSN, the entry name, with the name of the substance. So I'm going to show you an example of a safety data sheet that has this information. Okay, so just hold on. I'm going to stop the share here, or wait, I'll put a new share. And let me try and open up. Just a sec. You can see me changing, opening stuff, right? Can you see me doing stuff like that? Opening, changing things?
Yes.
Ah, okay, cool. Because I want to know how my slide, my screen is sharing everything or not. Okay, so one thing about these headphones, my ears get hooked up in it and I have to put my glasses like a weirdo. All right, here you go. I'm going to open this. This is a L'Oreal. Can you see the SDS on the screen?
Nope.
No. Yes. Cannot see. Okay, then I have to stop share and start share again. So you change the thing, then the fellow stopped sharing. Right, now you see it?
Yes.
Okay, so this is L'Oreal and I will go all the way down to section 14. So tomorrow, if you want to bring your SDS for class, please bring. In fact, it's good for us to explore. You can share it, you know, attach it in the chat and we can look at it. I can download it and look at it. So there, now we're in section 14 and take a look at this substance. All right, don't look at the top, the consumer packaging. We will look at this later when I come to limited quantity. But look at this, this is your industrial packaging. So this product, they chose this UN number 1993. And the PSN is flammable liquids, not otherwise specified. And remember what 274 said. 274 said, for the purpose of documentation and package marking, the PSN name shall be supplemented with the technical name of the substance. So where do we get the technical name of the substance? From the shipper's safety data sheet in section 14. When a shipper chooses to use an NOS, then they have to give you the technical information of what their substance contains, because only they know. The code book won't know. The code book is giving you generic examples right now. It's telling that it highly likely looks like this and is like this, but it is not this. It's like Slim Shady. So how do you know what it is? It's putting the bracket. So when you declare, you mark, you will do UN 1993, flammable, always must be in capital letters, yeah, flammable liquid, NOS, and now in brackets, that long name, it is an extremely long name, 3-ethyl heptamethyl trisilosane. Wih, panjang punya nama. Ethyl heptamethyl trisiloxane, right? Loxane. See the name? So this is the actual UN and PSN for a substance like this. All right? So whenever you have a PSN that has an NOS that ends in it, the job is not over. The entry is insufficient. It is ruled under the special provision 274. Okay, so these are how the committee of experts have actually organized all these UN numbers. All right, now wait, let me share screen back to where we were. Right, so this explains the 4 types of PSNs. Then of course in the column 3 and the column 4 of the DGL, as you look at your DGL, the column 3 and the column 4 are now communicating the hazards. So when you look at, let's take 1707, the one that Nalmuli picked up, thallium compound NOS. So for that 1707, UN 1707, the number belongs to this product called thallium compounds, but it's not otherwise specified. To really know what it is, we need to look at the SDS to determine that in section 14. However, we can say that this thallium compound NOS is actually a toxic substance, because in column 3, what is being communicated to us is the main hazard of this substance. And when we look at column 4, we also see this 1707 has an alphabet P. So which means this substance is also a marine pollutant. Now let me remind you, column number 4 indicates subsidiary risk. And in that column, of course, if a substance has more than one risk, you can't have more than one primary risk. Primary means number one. You cannot be more, there cannot be more than one person to be number one in class, right? Otherwise it won't be number one, right or not? So same, primary risk means number one, most dangerous risk. So you can't have more than one primary hazard. So primary hazard will sit in column number 3. But if the substance has more than one hazard, that's going to sit in column number 4. I give you another example in that same page 81, you look at UN number 1722, allyl chloroformate. And when you look at allyl chloroformate, not only is its main hazard a 6.1, but when you look at column number 4, you see it has a subsidiary hazard of 3 and a subsidiary hazard of 8. Now, what I want to bring your attention to is, although column number 4 is indicating subsidiary risks, it also indicates a marine pollutant for a substance. So you might have this notion, or they put the marine pollutant in column number 4, that means a marine pollutant is a subsidiary risk. No, it isn't. They put it in that column, but that is a main risk too. All right, which means that whenever a substance is a marine pollutant, you got to stick this everywhere, pretty much, on the package, on the container, on the IBC, on the IBC, or if you have palletized it, the pallet, and you have to document, communicate this. And I will explain to you, why do we have to declare this information to the carrier? Why is it so important? Why do we need to tell these guys who go out at sea that this is a marine pollutant? All right, so we'll cover that when we come into part 7. So 3 and 4 is communicating exactly that. And then we come to column 5. So column 5 refers to packing group. And now you know, since we've done classes, that packing group, they use that word packing group to express the level of danger associated to a specific UN number or class. There are some classes that the concept of packing group does not exist. In the case of class 1, in the case of class 2, or class 6.2 or 7, because class 1 explosives, class 7 radioactive, class 6.2 infectious substances, and class 2 gases. So these substances, you cannot use any of these. You can't just use a drum or use a bag, if this looks like a bag to you, or use a box. There are specific type of packages, industrial packages, that are confined for these classes, and that's why the packing group does not come into play here. But for those classes that can be packed in these various types of industrial packaging, you will see packing group concepts introduced into them. And generally what the packing groups are communicating, as you have learned now in class 3, it is defining when a substance is placed under the class 3, which one of it is more dangerous than the other. And by defining, when we say how do we define, because remember, using the word dangerous is pointless unless you can quantify it. So how do you quantify this level of danger? Flashpoint. The flashpoint is now telling me whether something is very dangerous, whether something is medium danger or whether something is minor danger. And that same packing group concept, because it's communicating the hazard levels based on, say, flash point, or based on the concentration of the corrosive substances because of the skin tissue breakage, destruction of skin tissue, or the combustibility, how quickly it catches fire. So based on these criterias that have been set values to determine the hazards in the packing group concepts, this packing group concepts also dictate how much can you fill, because packing in English is a doing word. We call this a verb, a doing word. And package in English is a noun. It's a thing. All right? You pack into a package. So based on the PGs, 1, 2, or 3, it will determine this package. What kind of package can I use? Can I use a drum? And when I use a drum, can I use the ones that I can open the head, or the ones that I cannot open the head, the non-removable head types? And when I do use the drum, how much can I fill into this drum? Can I fill it up full to 200 liters, or do I have to only stick to 75 liters? Right? Can I use combination packaging? So all this information, and okay, apart from the capacity, the packing group is also now going to determine the severity of the performance test these packages have to go through. Now, when a substance falls into PG1 and you want to use a drum to fill that PG1 cargo, you cannot use any industrial package for DG unless it has been tested, performance tested, it has been certified as a UN approved package, and then it obtains the UN packing approval code. All right. So assuming all of that is done, you have fulfilled the UN packing. When you are going to send your package for performance tests, and you communicate to, say, Sirim, because they are your package testers, you tell Sirim, I want to use this drum for PG1. What will happen is there are a few tests. One of them is called a drop test. They take the thing and then they drop, and then they see when they drop the thing whether the contents are coming out of the package or not. So when they do a drop test for a PG3, the drop height can be 9 meters. And if it is a PG1, it could be a 9 meters. And if it's a PG3, it could be as low as 0 point something meters. You know what I mean? So packing group determines the severity of the packaging and the performance test of the packages. So this is generally what this slide is trying to explain to you. That is your column 5. Now we go to column 6. So today I'm going to stop until column 6 for our online training session. I will continue part 3 tomorrow in the morning. Now your homework, when we finish this session, download everything in the attachments, number 1. For those of you who have not done the quiz for part 1 quiz, please do your part 1 quiz. And since we finish part 2, as a homework, you can do your part 2 quiz. I've given you all 2 quizzes in part 2. One is a multiple choice quiz and one is a fill-in information. It's a subjective quiz. Okay, so fill it in, and then tomorrow morning we'll talk about your quiz. Anyway, I can also look at how you are doing online, because I can go into your, I can map and see your performance. I can see how many times you have gone online, how many times you have run through the notes, how many times you have accessed the videos, how many times you have attempted the tests. Okay, so I will continue with special provisions and stop from here, from this point onwards. After special provisions, when I come to the exceptions like limited and accepted quantities, I need time. It's not easy to understand, and we are like 30 minutes away. So let's do special provisions first. So as I mentioned to you, special provisions that appear in column number 6 of the DGL are equally as important as the information that you will derive in column 1 to column 5. All right, why are special provisions important? Because they may ask you to do some additional information. In the case of lithium batteries, there are special provisions here. Let me show you some information. Now, if you look at special provision 281, you have the SPs on you. You take a look at 281. So when you look at special provision 281, special provision 281 tells you what kind of products are forbidden or restricted for transport. And they tell you here, transport of hay, straw, or busa, when wet, damp, or contaminated with oil is prohibited, and when not wet or contaminated with oil is subject to the provisions of the code. So that means if this product, straw, busa, and bale, right? If this product, and hay, sorry, if this product has oil contaminated, there's a mixture of oil in it, you cannot move it at all. But if it is empty of oil, that means you have removed the oil, it's not mixed with oil and not contaminated with oil, then it is a dangerous substance and you have to follow the guidelines of the code book. Then you have exceptions for the code. So you take a look at SP32. Just take a look at SP32. So SP32 says when in any form this substance is not subject to the provisions of the code. So certain UN numbers, this SP might apply. All right. And then you also have further provisions, like if you look at SP29. SP29 packages, including bales, are exempt from labeling provided that they are marked with the appropriate mark. So SPs, like for instance, you look at SP 145, 144, and 145, okay, in your, let me look at your faces to see whether you're looking at it. Now, when you look at SP, say assuming you get a customer, of course, for those who are going to be CPC surveyors, you may not like this, but I will tell you when this you have to follow. You get a customer who intends to export some kind of alcoholic beverage, okay? And they want to know whether this alcoholic beverage, is it considered DG, because alcohol, makan, it could be DG, right? Depending on the alcohol content. So they tell you that, hey, I've got this alcoholic beverage that I want to ship out to East Malaysia, and I have put it in drums of 200 liters per drum. And this alcoholic beverage will come under, wait, let me open the UN number so then you will know which. You don't have the UN number, but just so we can do things in a more, yeah. So usually the UN number for alcoholic beverage is 3065, and 3065. All right, let me show you in the camera here. You don't have it. If you have the code book, you can see, look for 3065. All right. So 3065, when you look at 3065, you will see these SPs. You see that this is 3065, alcoholic beverage. And then you see these SPs, can see? The camera must focus. Okay. Then you will see these SPs. There's 144, 145. And then, you know, when you see a 3065, and then it tells you it's an alcoholic beverage, and it tells you it's a class 3, and your customer wants to know now, hey, can I, like, if I pack it in a 200 liter drum, is it still considered DG or not? So you go to the SP144 first. SP144 says an aqueous solution containing not more, because when you look at column 6 of 3065, you get SP144, you get SP145, and SP247. So you want to look at all these SPs to see whether any of it will qualify to exempt your customer from claiming that the product, the alcoholic beverage, is DG. All right. So you first go to SP144. And 144 tells you an aqueous solution containing not more than 24% alcohol by volume is not subject to the provisions of this code. But then your client tells you that their alcoholic beverage, you ask them how much alcohol content, 40%, bro, 40%. Then you go, alamak, 144 cannot, because 144 says 24% alcohol proof and below. So you go to 145. So here 145 says alcoholic beverages of packing group 3. It so happens to be that your client's one is packing group 3, 3065, okay? It is with more than 24% alcohol, between 24 and 70% alcohol, packing group 3. So you go at 145, it says alcoholic beverages of PG3 when transported in receptacles of 250 liters and less are not subject to the provisions of the code. Did you see that? Did you see 145? So now I'll go back to my customer and I say, oh, your alcohol proof is 70%, right? Okay, no, 40%, right? Okay, no problem. Your drum, you said how many? 200 liters. Okay, 200 liters. No worries. We exercise SP145 because SP145 says 250 liters and less. And this guy has filled it up in 200-liter drums. So now you see an SP giving an exemption. Same way, if you look at SP 960, 961 are the SPs that they use for cars. You look at 961, 960. Now these are SPs for cars. So 961, 960 is on page 222. And you can see because it's 961 is actually the most important. 961, 962. They are the ones that will tell you that you can exempt a car from being an article of dangerous goods on certain conditions. Like in 961, they tell you first, 9611, if the car is stored on a ro-ro ship, a roll-on, roll-off ship, because you don't put it in a container, can't you? Just drive the car up the ramp and it's secured onto that ro-ro ship. So because it is not in a confined space, a container is a confined space. When you put flammable liquid and you have a battery connected and you put it into a closed confined space, heat will initiate and that thing can possibly explode. So that is why they tell you that if you drive your car and you secure it on a ro-ro ship, it is not in a confined space, it is not considered DG. That's condition 1. Tapi susah nak cari ro-ro kapal tau. Almost always we have to use a container for cars. So then we have no choice. We have to use a container. So they say, okay, wait. Okay, you want to use a container, no problem. You have other few conditions to consider. Condition number 2 says, if your vehicle uses diesel, they put their flammable liquids with a flash point of 38 degrees and above. That means diesel. Okay. Then they tell you there are no leaks in the portion of the fuel system. The fuel tank contains 450 liters of fuel or less, and the installed batteries are protected. So that means you can have fuel in the tank. If your fuel is diesel, it has to be 450 liters and less, and the batteries must be protected. Then okay, you can remove it from the DG, articles of DG. But assuming your car is using petrol, not diesel. So you look at point 3. Point 3 says vehicle powered by flammable liquids with a flash point of less than 38 degrees. Yeah, the fuel tanks are empty. That means if your car is powered with petrol, you want to remove it from the articles of dangerous goods, empty the fuel tanks, protect the batteries, use SP961 to then, you need a letter of indemnity to indicate that you're exercising SP961 and that this car is no longer an article of dangerous goods. All right, so SPs, please take a look at them. There are so many and you have like perfect amount to take a look at all these SPs, and you would notice these SPs are very, very important. They will tell you how from lithium batteries, they will indicate the lithium ion content, so you know which label to use. Otherwise you wouldn't know which label, because lithium batteries also, they gave us 2 labels, so you need to know which label to use when, right? So special provisions are very important, all right? And I cannot emphasize that enough to you. So after this is where we go into, yeah, see, this is the lithium battery SP, special provision. So after this is where we go to exceptions. Column 7A and column 7B are relatively long, and we're running out of time right now. So what I will do is I will do this tomorrow morning when we come in, and please, yeah, come in at 8:30 in the morning lah, so I can check your system, test, ding dong, and I can find out whether you guys did your, wait, I'm going to stop